Our sequence starts off with very upbeat jazz music and displays a gun coming in towards the screen. It then cuts to a shot of a man walking towards a car, looking around suspiciously, and then ducking down. He then returns to the shot dressed in a suit. He then walks out of shot and winks as he goes. Our protagonist then pulls a funny face and jumps up towards the camera, which emphasises the comedy in our sequence. It then shows a close-up shot of a woman shaking and pouring a martini into a glass and handing it to Teddy. Teddy then drinks this drink and spits it out very comedically. It then cuts to a close-up shot of a villain, and in the background we can see Teddy jumping over walls to try and catch the villain. Teddy then hides behind a tree which is clearly too small for him. It then cuts to a mid-shot of Teddy trying to shoot a gun, but this is unsuccessful. Teddy is then seen getting into his car and closing his door. A match-on-action shot is then used to show Teddy fastening his seatbelt, and as he does this, someone in the backseat strangles him. After Teddy's struggle, it cuts to a close-up shot of Teddy shooting a gun, and then into an over-the-shoulder shot where the title is being seen coloured in. The camera zooms in on this shot, it is then scrunched up and thrown towards the camera, and then when it hits the camera, the title appears on the screen. Our title sequence represents particular social groups, and since it is a spy film, it is predictable to have stereotypical representations of both men and women. Starting with the women, we have represented them in two ways. The first way is them being evil. We have done this through the mise-en-scène and costume, as we have made one of our villains female and hid her identity by using a scarf, which makes her appear mysterious and feared. The fact the woman is wielding a gun portrays her as powerful and capable of killing, which goes against the common stereotypes of women. The close-up shot of the woman's eyes make her appear determined and alert, which represents women as being assertive and knowing what they need to do. In this case, her goal was to destroy Teddy, which represents women as being ruthless and powerful, as her enemy is a man who is stereotypically stronger. The second representation we had of women was that they are inferior and men dominate them. This is clearly represented by the fact a female pours and serves Teddy a drink, which shows women are willing to take orders from men and also have a lower status in society, due to the contrast of the characters' occupations, as Teddy is a spy and she is a barmaid. The fact the woman had red fingernails represents the woman as being promiscuous, as red connotes passion. This is stereotypical for a spy film, as women often take the role of becoming intimate with the protagonist. As for the men, they are represented as superior, firstly through the costumes, as Teddy is dressed in formal attire and is well presented in a tuxedo, which is stereotypical for a spy and also betrays he is high in the social hierarchy. However, as our spy starts off as a failure, he represents men as being simple-minded and idiotic due to him failing to complete simple actions such as using a gun, which a woman who is stereotypically shown as weaker is shown to be capable of doing. Through the use of close-up shots of the protagonist's face, we were able to show humorous facial expressions which represent men as being comedic and slightly unaware of danger, as there is a gun in the background of the shot. The fact Teddy gets into the car and is unaware there is a villain hiding in the back seat represents men as being assertive and not prepared for danger. This is clearly shown as Teddy is getting strangled. As the other villain is also a man, this creates a second representation of men as they are shown to be violent and aggressive, as he doesn't have a problem strangling the protagonist. However, our negative representation of men being stupid is removed by the end of the sequence, as Teddy finally gets his signature pose of shooting the gun right, which represents him as being victorious and confident. It can also be said that our protagonist represents men as being flirty, which gives him the label of a ladies' man, as he often winks at the camera and thanks the barmaid with a seductive wink. As our film is likely to be a blockbuster, we would need a successful film company to produce our film, specifically one of the big six. Universal was our chosen distributor, as they have produced films that appeal to our target audience of nuclear families. For example, E.T. We would need a big film company, as the budget for our film is higher, $80 million. Therefore, this company would be able to cover the cost of the film and distribute it internationally, as our film is likely to be a success worldwide. For our target audience, we decided to target nuclear families, with our primary audience being children aged 6 to 12 and our secondary audience being parents and older siblings. Our target audience would have various traits such as generous, humorous, friendly and caring, and would fit into social class E and have a psychographic profile of a mainstreamer. Although our production is gender neutral, we felt it would appeal more to the male audience, as our protagonist is male and they would see him as a form of idol and look up to him and would be able to relate to the protagonist through the similarity in gender. Our secondary audience would be quite domesticated and would fit the stereotype of being rather like a housewife. So with assumption, most females would take their children to the cinema, as it's generally the evident picture at the cinema as a general overview. Also, being well-known value for money would give the assumption that they would spend their money wisely on something in which appeals to them and their sociographics and psychographics. We thought they'd fit into the social group of ABC1 class. They would also be domestic and sentimental and would favour big well-known brands which are good value for money. To research into our target audience, we looked at various items that are being advertised for children of the same age as our target audience. This included things like toy trucks, action men, and various other superhero things. So we figured the best way to appeal to our target audience would create a form of idol which seemed cool to them. For this reason, we decided to make Mr. Teddy a spy, as we wanted to go down a similar route as James Bond, which seemed very popular with children of this age.